The Virtua Fighter series is one of the most badass fighting game franchises out there, full of your favourite punch combos, jump kicks and head dives. Put your kick gloves on and punch boots as we step into the world of virtual martial arts. Fighting games have always sparked my interest. I remember first visiting one of my friends' houses and trying to best my opponents, always having a great time doing so as well. However, I was never compelled to own a copy of myself. I knew awesome fighting games were out there: Street Fighter, Dead or Alive, Mortal Kombat, and Virtua Fighter. I knew they were worth the play, but they were never a part of my life. Until one day. It was August of 2009, and I just so happened to search for a game on the interwebs, and then this trailer for Super Street Fighter 4 hit my face. I was so excited, and when it was released, I got it with no questions asked, and I played that sucker like there was no tomorrow. After a few months of playing that magic, I began to get greedy. I wanted more. I wanted to explore more fighting games. And then I instantly remembered all those past memories of fighting times with my friends. And I wanted it all. Of course, thinking realistically, I couldn't afford everything. So I had to sit down and think about what I wanted, and what was most fondly remembered. After much time, I had an image of what I wanted in my head, but I couldn't remember what the game was called. After talking to my friends about it, they all kept pointing towards Tekken, and I knew that wasn't right. Sure, it looked like martial arts fighting, but something wasn't right. After months of being told about Tekken, that was awesome, and I really didn't think so, I finally found it. Virtua Fighter. In all of its glory, the first 3D fighting game. One of the best fighting games of all time. And how on earth did I come to that conclusion, I hear you ask? Well then, when I say one of the best, I am less talking about the first game, and I'm rather talking about the second. You see, I can't talk about one without talking about the other. The two are forever linked. And for you to understand what I'm talking about, then just listen. Now let's start with the beginning, with Virtua Fighter 1.
How can you pick this game over Tekken? It's clearly a rip-off of Tekken. I mean, look at it, it's a 3D fighting game, it does martial arts. It's clearly...
Sorry about that. Virtua Fighter was an arcade game to begin with, but when the Saturn was released, they decided to port the game over to the home console. Having a home port of an arcade game was always awesome, and Sega were kings at that. The true appeal of this game is that it had real fighting moves in it, which was a huge shift in direction for fighting games. Mostly it was wild, outlandish attacks that were very eye-catching, don't get me wrong. So it was a bold move to make a game based on real fighting styles and real-time execution moves. The look of the game, however, has something to be desired. The look of the characters is very basic, very blocky. Even if you have poor eyesight, it's clear that this is not very well polished. I want to say it's an overlooked feature by Sega, but it's very obvious, so I kind of want to believe this was a deliberate intention. The controllers are very responsive. You will rarely complain about a command that's not being recognised. Although if things are too real for you, there is always a setting for beginners. And you can always mess around with the button configs too in case it's not to your liking. There are many ways to configure the controllers to your liking, to whatever you're comfortable with. And if you're a pro, then good for you, well done. The game is very focused around combat. When creating this game, you can tell they didn't try anything like story or bonus rounds. The whole game is just about fighting. The music when playing just makes you feel pumped. When you hit someone in the face, it really felt good. And it's even better when you find out how to pull off a combo. It genuinely feels like I'm hitting someone, and I don't often get that when I play fighting games. The first game only presented two options of gameplay: Classic Arcade and Versus Mode. Versus Mode is pretty self-explanatory. You face off against a friend or foe in multiplayer. Pretty simple. Arcade Mode is very easy to understand. You choose a character and you fight every character in the roster, even the character you have chosen at the end. As mentioned as before, the fighters in these games use real fighting styles, and because of that, each fighter has a very specific moveset. So if you want to master them all, you have to spend a lot of time with this game. The stages of which you fight are very unique in their own right. They are specific to each character which you face off against. And depending on which character you fight, different music plays. And music is always epic. And if by any chance you happen to fall in battle, the game gives you a chance to change your character if you so wish, and starting you off from where you fell last, so you don't lose any progress. You don't have to change character, of course, but the fact that they added the feature, the option for you to choose, is always a +1 in my book. Speaking of options, when you actually enter the options menu, you can really change the game. Changing the game's difficulty, of course, the health bar of you and your opponent, how many times you win a round, or change the round time to 10 seconds to infinite time. It's up to you. By the way, when you start the arcade mode, there is a clock that appears in the bottom right hand corner that ticks down depending on how long you spend fighting. I always thought this was a neat little feature if you're into speedrunning. Also, when you've defeated everybody in the roster, then there is a hidden character that you must fight. It's not required to win this fight, of course, but I always feel terrible when I fail this bonus, and that always gets me coming back for more to try again. I feel as though this game really tried to be something different, and that's a breath of fresh air. It's not often you find a company that tries a new stretch on things that makes a real difference in the industry. It doesn't happen that often anymore, but back in the day, holy crap, it was happening left, right and centre. And well, that's Virtua Fighter 1 in a nutshell. Now let's see what Virtua Fighter 2 has to offer. The very second you start up your Saturn, you get a mini video showing off how they have thrown away that blocky look of the old characters and smoothed everything out to look so much nicer. The texture mapping to boot, and also a couple of new characters to try out. So what has been improved compared to the last game? Well, for one, the frame rate. Now listen to me, I am not really an FPS guy. I couldn't care less what my frame rate is, as long as it doesn't make the game look terrible to the point where it's unplayable. I'm fine. But the moment I changed from the first game to the second game, I noticed a huge difference. Along with the improvement of frame rate, the controls somehow toned down to a much smoother, and I don't even know how they did that. Is that even possible? The first game had such tight controls to begin with, and the music, oh, the music is even better. The music feels like it's inspired straight from a fighting movie, like Rocky or something. Now then, let's add some meat to the sandwich. They added a bunch of new features, and I feel they are a great addition. Expert mode focuses the game on the hardest difficulty and makes the CPU think faster than normal. Although, when I did try this mode, it was very easy, and that's because the computer seemed to be more concerned about blocking than actually landing a punch on me. I feel as though this mode was actually a little bit broken, however I could just be an absolute pro and not know it. Ranking mode pits you against fighters and ranks how well you fight them until your last breath. It tallies everything, to missed punches, to the power of your attack, and how many characters you managed to defeat. I think this mode was a great addition, because this is the perfect way to see if you've gotten any better at the game. To say like you chose the difficulty mode and you decided to brush up on your skills, this is the mode to practice on. It gives you everything you need to know. Well, more or less. You kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. Team battle is very interesting. You can choose which fighters you want on your team, up to 5. Then, your first character fights against the opponent's first character to see who wins. Depending on who wins, the next fighter of the opponent's team then takes their place. This mode ends when every fighter from each team has been defeated. I imagine this mode would be great if you had a room full of people. You could all choose which fighter you want to be and hop in when it's your turn, eliminating the use for multi-split controller ports for more players. Very creative, I have to say. And then there is watch mode, where you can watch the CPU fight each other. Yeah, honestly, I really don't know how this could be good. I mean, it's very boring after sitting there for 10 minutes. However, I suppose you could place bets on who would win. Yeah. Awesome. Now to the downer of this game, the backgrounds, or stages. They haven't really improved. Sure, they changed the look of the backgrounds to keep it fresh, but with them smoothing out how the fighters looked, I imagine they would have done the same with the stages. Sometimes it's hard to tell where the floor is, and the perspective is often confusing. This is a huge opportunity that they've missed that would have made this game shine. But hey, what are you gonna do? Times are gone, right? And something I have to mention, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I can't ignore it. When playing as the female characters, the controls are much more responsive, very faster than the male characters. Now I don't know if that's because female characters are supposed to be lighter, or something along those lines, but I always ended up choosing Pi or Sarah because, well, I usually get the punch first. There was a lot less strategy time and more of the wow wow pow dash. But that's just me. Something that was taken out that was a huge mistake, and that is when you fall, you don't get a chance to choose your character. You have infinite chances to win the game, but removing the choice to change your character is a definite one down. Plus, once you have chosen a character in a mode, you can't go back unless you reset your console. There really isn't no way to return easily without doing so. Also, the bonus stage still exists, however it's underwater, although it does give the illusion you are moving in slow motion, but I didn't really know how to feel about this. I was disappointed that it wasn't a normal fighting arena, but it still felt kinda cool. The fight was made a lot tougher because there was a lot more time to think about what the hell you had to do, because the whole game was based around how fast you made your moves and the response time to your opponents. But at this point, when everything was made slow-mo, you really get your ass whooped. You've got to think about an entirely different new paradigm, and it's a new challenge, because if you make one false move, you have to watch your own ass get handed to you in slow motion. Very painful. All in all, the first 2 Virtua Fighter games for the Saturn are indeed little gems that deserve to be played. If you are a fighting game fan, they were the first steps into 3D fighting, and they did a fantastic job. It may be a little rusty at this point with a ton of 3D fighter games being pumped out today, but if I had to recommend any fighting game from the past, it wouldn't be Killer Instinct, it wouldn't be Mortal Kombat, and it wouldn't be Street Fighter. I would tell you to play Virtua Fighter 2. Fucking get on it. Thank you for watching this video, and if you liked what you saw, please leave a like. And if you really liked what you saw, please subscribe, there will be plenty more in the future. And if you missed last episode, then please click on this box, because that's where it resides. And as long as I'm here, I'd like to give a shout out to 3 more people. The Blast Processors, the SEGA channel, and Saturn Memories. Thank you all for watching, I'll see you next time.